Espresso technology is changing so fast that things that we thought were great, we now know are making your espresso worse. Here are 4 things that I thought I knew, and you probably did too, that turned out to be dead wrong, or at least not totally accurate. A few years ago, we started to see these distribution tools with fins that looked so cool and made the bed of coffee look perfectly prepped for a nice, clean and level tamp. But we now know that despite looking nice on top, distribution tools actually do very little for coffee underneath the surface. Distribution is a whole rabbit hole, but the goal is basically this. Your puck prep is there to reduce the chance of water finding an easy way through the coffee puck, avoiding most of the coffee and extracting too much from a small area of coffee and then nothing from the rest. But I even suggested in a video to only use a distribution tool, which for the record, I no longer think or do myself. Now I generally grind into a dosing cup, distribute with a WDT, and then tamp. I do wonder what other tools might be coming through the pipeline to convince espresso machine owners to part with more of their hard-earned cash. Do you remember how the visible crema on top of an espresso made influencers and coffee nerds delight and feel like they pulled an amazing shot due to just how beautiful it looked? Well, the crema is another thing that we've totally misunderstood. Of course, it can still help to indicate freshness and the boldness of a roast, and it adds a silky texture to your espresso, but it doesn't actually taste good, and recently, baristas are putting more emphasis, correctly, on the taste of the espresso rather than just what it looks like coming out of a fancy bottomless portafilter. This is particularly true of lighter roast coffees, which don't tend to produce as much in the way of visible crema, and alternative shot pulling methods like lower pressure shots that deliver a great tasting result but don't get that thick foam on top. Next time you pull a shot with a ton of crema, try spooning some off and tasting it. It's not great. You've probably heard the first rule in espresso communities that you should be aiming to get a 1:2 ratio of coffee in to espresso out in 25 to 35 seconds, or something similar to that. This is supposed to get you a proper Italian-style espresso, and getting outside of these bounds will give you sour espresso if it's too quick, or bitter espresso if it goes on too long. This rule may work well for most Italian cafes serving dark roasted beans as straight espresso, but we've come a long way by dialing in based on taste, not on timings, and experimenting with different ratios and speeds of extraction. Next time you're pulling a lightly roasted espresso shot, try upping the ratio and getting a 1:3 espresso in 35 seconds or so. Maybe you're having a cortado or a flat white, and you pull a 1:1 ratio of super highly extracted espresso, but it'll taste delightful with a little bit of milk. Don't let convention stop you from experimenting with different styles of espresso shots. There is no 1:2 ratio rule. It's super tempting to set your sights on a machine that will change the way you make espresso and latte art forever. However, there's something to be said for learning with the gear that you have and choosing the right upgrades at the right time. You can't just fix your technique with more expensive gear. Here's the order in which I suggest you improve your coffee setup. First, get better coffee beans. Good coffee always shines through, even if your setup isn't great. Next, buy whole beans and grind fresh. Then get a better grinder. Spend as much money as you can on that bad boy, because the grinder is the most important part. Then prep tools, and then finally the espresso machine itself. Most espresso machines make perfectly good espresso with the right coffee, grinder, and tools. But you can have a £10,000 espresso machine and put crap coffee with a bad grinder and no puck prep through it, and you're guaranteed to have underwhelming espresso. Same thing goes for latte art. I spent £50 on my first fancy jug, and I was super disappointed when my latte art didn't instantly improve to the level of all of their Instagram videos. There is a right way and a wrong way to do milk pouring, and I'll be getting some training from an awesome pro latte artist guest that I'm looking forward to bringing on the channel soon, so make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already to see that video when it comes out. Now I want to know what mistakes you made when you were just getting started in espresso, latte art, and coffee in general. Did you, like me, buy pre-ground espresso for your first espresso machine and then wonder why it always came out so fast and horrible tasting? I know it's embarrassing to admit, but I'm all about learning and improving and helping you guys get better tasting espresso every day. I want to thank my generous backers on Patreon, and a massive thank you to you for watching all the way to the end. Enjoy your espresso, and I'll see you on the next one.